I'm going to give everybody a few minutes to get settled, and I really appreciate your time. This is Chevy Cool Lady, and this is Chevy Investigates and Opinionates. I've just changed the channel to Chevy Cool Lady because I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Sometimes I want to dive into some true crime. Sometimes I want to talk about current events, and sometimes I want to talk about alternative history and pull people out of the matrix and pull them out of the paradigm and restore what I'm going to call free thought. This is a channel for free thinkers. I'm not in any way trying to ever say that I have all the correct answers or, I have some kind of insight into things that nobody else has. I have my opinions. And I back up what I say with research. If you don't do your own research, then you are definitely doomed to believe what other people tell you. And I feel like I did that long enough. I did that almost all my life, believing what I was taught in school, believing what I saw on the History Channel, believing everything that I was taught by experts, of course, and Lord forbid you should have your own thoughts on the subject, because you're wrong. The experts know everything. And, as I've gotten older, they say the uh, veil has lifted high. I want to say hi to She's a Wildfire. Good morning, darling. And we're going to talk about Mica's dilemma. Mica's dilemma. This is when you are taught a certain thing, for instance, Christian values, God's feelings on marriage, and God hates divorce. This is taken from the very memorable video that we all saw, where poor Mica, she looked so sad in this particular video as she talked about happy Saturday to you too, darling. But she talked about, her marriage, the abuse that was going on. She talked about, yes, God hates divorce, but God also hates to see his bride being hurt. And it's true, and we feel pressure, and especially if you're involved in the Christian circles, you feel pressure. You feel so much pressure to try to live up to some kind of image. This is when we start getting into something that I would call the captive spirit. The spirit that's inside of you that just feels dead, feels empty. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. And I'm going to go over some notes with you guys concerning these things. Please let me know how you feel, what your thoughts are. I'm trying to set this up so you can see and I can read at the same time. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's see. Now, we discussed yesterday that altars can develop in a person's life. Now, when I say altar, I'm talking about both the altar where you pause and reflect, like the altar of God, the altar of prayer, the altar that Abraham built. When I say things can be put on the altar, I'm referring to idols. In a place where God should be, sometimes we set up other things: fear, fetishes. It depends what type of altar. It depends what type of mindset that we're in when these things happen. When I say alter, I'm also referring to possible alter personalities, disassociation, and you know what I would call hidden boxes in your personality where you compartmentalize because of pain, because of trauma, because sometimes because of medical procedures that traumatize your body. There's there's a lot going on, and it's a deep subject, and that is a story for another day. But we talked about yesterday anyway, through trauma accidents, and operations. Uh, we can be sometimes caught unguarded and an altar set up because of these things, and something that doesn't benefit you can be placed on it through, of course, sin and demonic activity, because they're always waiting to traumatize us, aren't they? These little devils. I'm just kidding about that. It's a serious matter, and it's painful. It's painful. So we want to open the eyes of the blind. We want to empower people to live healthy and happy lives, regardless of any situation you might have been in, and that's really what my purpose is. Hi, Traven, Traven Barbie, and Lenore. Hi, guys. I don't see very well, so I have to get real close. So please excuse the big forehead as I look into the camera. I hope it's not too ugly. Good morning, guys. I'm so glad you can join me. All right. So anyway, um, there's different things that can happen. You can have, of course, you know that we are body, soul, and spirit. Body, soul, and spirit. But so much emphasis is put on both the body and the soul. Of course, you know the wounds to the body heal, leave scars, are hard to deal with. Wounds to the soul hurt your mind, they hurt your will, and they hurt your emotions, your soul, your mind, your body, and your spirit. We're talking about wounds. Wounds that can be through trauma, mentally, physically, and there's also spiritual wounds. And these are what is truly diabolical, and this can be absolutely captivating and leave you at a standstill. So I want to go into the spirit. I want to ask God right now to please bless this little talk, and please use me as you will. Please don't let me get in the way, Lord God, and just please give us insight as we learn your word and learn about all these things that are so important. Okay, so um, what are the signs of a captive spirit? Do you feel hollow? Do you feel empty? Do you feel like something's missing? These are spiritual feelings, okay? Are there death wishes, dark places, no joy for you? Do you feel walled in? Do you feel weighted down? I'm just going to read real brief. This isn't particularly a Bible study per se, but of course, the Word of God is the standard. So in Lamentations 3 6 to 9, good morning, I spy. Good morning to you, love. I'm so glad you could join us. All right, so Lamentations 3 6 to 9. Okay, he has set me in a dark place, like the dead of long ago. He has hedged me in so I cannot get out. He has made my chain heavy. Even when I cry and shout, he shuts out my prayer. He has blocked my ways. With hewn stone, he has made my paths crooked. These are the indications of spiritual captivity. All these things is something missing. Death wishes, dark places, no joy, walled in, weighted down. Is there even a stone upon the cave that you are in? You try to heal, you try to eat right, you try to see mental health professionals, and nothing seems to help. It could be a spiritual problem, and a lot of people aren't even open. Even Christian people sometimes miss the mark and don't know how to deal correctly. And I'm saying I'm guilty too. I want to learn myself. How do we deal with spiritual captivity? Oh, it's a tough thing, man. In Psalm 88:18, it says, "My friend is darkness and the grave." It reminds me of that old song, "Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again." You know, have y'all ever experienced that darkness in your life? Well, I have, my friends, and it is hard. It's hard to even move past it. I'm going to be always open and transparent because I want you to know me. And I'm not confined to my own past. My past doesn't define me. Years ago, and I have been through it all through my own hard headedness. Years ago, I was in a horrible place mentally. I had lost a little baby when she was just 6 weeks old, and it just tore my heart out. Was my sixth child, and you know, I had to be the strong one. I had to be the one to comfort everybody because it was so hard to deal with. People would come up to me and just fall apart, and I'd comfort them. And I had these five other children, and I had to be strong for them and press through, and my marriage was falling apart, as sometimes happens with the death of a child. You'd like to think that you'd be pulled together, you know, but that's not what really always happens, and that's not what happened in my case. And eventually, affairs came in. My husband had an affair, and then I retaliated in an immature way, and I got pregnant. Oh, yeah. How horrible. He wanted me to uh, terminate, and I just couldn't. I just could not. And it cost me my marriage. Um, but I remember going through this, and while I was pregnant, I was very far along, maybe about 7 or 8 months, and I felt like I could just die. And I was laying on the bed. He was still with me, but it was cold as ice between us. And I was laying there with my stomach so big, knowing that there's a baby soon to come into the world, and feeling so sorry about everything. Damned by the principles that I had upheld for myself, let alone all the judgment of the church members and people, who now they didn't want to associate with me because now I'm the bad guy, and okay, you know, I was. And I remember laying on my bed, and it was so feeling so empty, so all these things that we just discussed, and I thought I wouldn't even have to kill myself. I could just close my eyes and my spirit would leave my body. That's how sad I felt. You know, and this, I'm talking over 20 years ago. This was a long time ago. And eventually, you know, I myself was released so that I could move on. And it still hurts. It's still painful. Some of these things, you move on, but you don't always totally get over. You have to somehow incorporate the pain and let it act as compassion. So anyway, that's what was going on with me at that particular time. So when I read these words about, you know, my friend is darkness in the grave, I myself understand what that means. You're born again, but you're struggling. Counselors that you go to may not understand. You need time alone with the Lord, but even then you feel like your prayers just aren't even being heard. You feel persecuted. You feel tormented. Your spirit is captive. Captive. In Psalm 44:18, David said, even from childhood, I had feelings of suffering. If you feel like you can't reach the talents and abilities located inside of you, you may be being held captive spiritually. It's not always a matter of the will. There's demonic forces that fight us even while we sleep. They want to fight us, but God gives to His beloved sleep. You must use the word of God to overcome. In Psalm 88, 1 through 8, it's a cry of desperation from a place of captivity, which is called Sheol in the Bible. I believe that this is a place of the dead, captive spirits, human spirits who've died without Christ, waiting for the judgment. Makes sense to me. But can living human spirits be held captive? There's a place your spiritual body can be tortured at. Okay? Maybe it's Sheol. Do you feel cut off from God, no blessings? You may be being held captive in the realms of hell. Afflicted by waves, does your grief and sorrow come like waves? Fear like waves? Friendless, rejected, negative energy? It goes beyond what's just even human. It is, your spirit is being held captive in the realms of hell, in my opinion. These teachings can be further expanded upon. Um, I've learned a lot listening to Jesse Zabota, and I've learned a lot from Amanda Byes. These people are what I would call brought to the Christians for the end time events. Things that we haven't been open to because the veil was not lifted like it is now. People are coming to truth. Saved and unsaved both are seeing that everything isn't as we were taught. Things aren't as it appeared to be. You start looking into history, which is how basically I started coming out of the Matrix, was looking into these architectural achievements and wondering, really, did the guy with the horse and buggy build this? And begin to look at things like star forts and just interesting things that I never learned about in school, and I want to know why not. And really, we may not know all the answers, but we know that it's not what we were told. It's not what we were told. It couldn't possibly. Like when I saw Sydney, Australia, I had no idea that Sydney looked like that. It was so developed, full of big, beautiful buildings, the same big buildings like we see in Washington, D.C. and New York City. And I'm thinking, this is a place built supposedly by, convicts and mental um, institution people that were let out. I don't know how to put that, but there weren't like a whole colony of skilled architects that came to Sydney. It was like the people they got rid of in England and sent over there. And I had always thought it was like, Crocodile Dundee land, and it's like, no, that's not exactly what it looks like at all. Okay. And anyway, so I began looking around the world and, studying things and doing my own research. And I began to see, man, things are really different. Have you all looked into this? I'm just wondering. All right. So, captive spirits, Mica's dilemma. It could possibly be that she was in a sense of captivity through, many different things. This can be through. It can be through bloodlines, curses and contracts made, generational curses, things that need to be looked at and prayed for in specific ways to receive the freedom that we need. I'm just learning this myself. Right. It's interesting. I spy. It's like food for thought. I feel like I had for 30 years listened almost to the same stories, the same even Christian jokes in church. The pastor dad's jokes and stuff like that. The same once in a while, some type of, insight, revelation, of course, personal growth and took place. But when I started really looking into things, I began to think, man, there's a lot more to learn. There's a lot more to learn, and there's teachers coming from all over the world, and you discern with the Spirit what's of God and what's not, and of course, the Word of God is the measure. And I think that a lot of the things that I had been taught were put off with just very simple answers. Um, since I'm talking about the captive spirits, for example, I always would say, of course, there's no ghosts because a man has once to die and then the judgment, and that's it. That's the answer. But you know what? There's a lot of scripture that backs up these teachings, and that's why I'm pointing to Amanda Byes. She's, to me, one of the very best teachers. She's a professional. Her and her husband are counselors and do tremendous work under Canaan Ministries, which is K-A, I think A-N-N-A, or K-A-N-N-A. It's spelled with a K. But anyway, from what I've seen, there's just tremendous insight can be gained um, on this subject, and tremendous help for us as Christians when we see people in dilemmas to offer them real help, not just some kind of bogus little line. God hates divorce, so stay with your abuser. Yeah, don't do that. Get to a safe place and don't make him mad. Get out of there. Confrontations are what get ladies and gentlemen killed. And we don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. We want everybody to be safe and live their life and live their purpose and live the love they are meant to be. That's what we want. So I will never, ever give bad advice to people. In, I just can't. I just can't do it. I had people tell me so many ridiculous and stupid things where my life was in danger, and people told me, no, you need to stay, you need to submit. No, no, you don't. No, you don't. You need to live your life. That's what you really need to do. Now, this comes to Mica's dilemma. Yes, knowledge is power. And that's why I think she, in that one particular video that's so well remembered, where she looks so sad and she's talking about being the bride and, remembering that that is her first calling, and to understand that, God doesn't look favorably upon abusers. He hates abuse. He hates people who oppress the poor and the needy and the weak and the vulnerable. That is not God's way. It is not. And I don't care if you call yourself a preacher. You're under more condemnation for that, right? Yes, we all saw what a struggle that was from Mike, and I'm glad she made the video so people don't feel alone. Exactly. That's why I wanted to refer back to this. I'm kind of going back over the whole situation, and this is something that's deep. I you know I use myself as an example because, you know, I am least of the disciples, and I've made so many mistakes as a Christian, and I've done so much wrong, and I've been in the dilemmas that I was torn between my Christian principles and my um, my own desires. I'll put it that way. But always God has taken me back, and God always, always forgives when you humble yourself and confess your sin. And turn away from it. You don't want to stay in those things that are so painful. You want to move on. But sometimes your spirit is being held by demonic forces and you are captive because of bloodline contracts, because of generational curses, because you yourself have not fought those particular demons, so they will leave you and your children alone. The dilemma here in Mica's case was God hates divorce, God also hates abuse. Mica's world was JP's church. I kind of drew a little thing I'm going to show you here. Let's see. All right, so here's Mica's, the bride of JP, Mica's dilemma, the bride of JP. Under JP's control. Okay, let me rephrase this. Okay, here's Mica's dilemma. Mica, as the bride of JP, is one, under JP's control, two, submissive to JP's demands, three, the fruits. What were the fruits of her life with JP? And what we saw were fruits of depravity and death. I won't go into it all. Y'all are familiar with the story. And as she said in that particular video, people who make you take illegal drugs, sexual abuse, all these things were brought up as allegations against this particular man, J.P. Miller. Her dilemma: God hates divorce, God also hates abuse. So J.P.'s whole world was J.P., the church at Solid Rock, and Mica's world, apart from him, is her family, her new beginnings. Remember, her car, a new church, a job. Okay, so Mica had gone for her first time she left JP. She went to Kansas. She began a new life in Kansas. This was about a year and a half prior to that date of April 27th that brought this story to a tragic end. She had gone to Kansas. She had started going to a new church, had new friends. One day, her friends were shocked when they received a text that basically said, "Praise God, I have been reconciled, and my husband," and this just kills me, "is allowing me to go home." Who do you think wrote that? There aren't too many women that are going to talk like that unless they're under some kind of duress, or maybe she didn't write it alone because he has a history of impersonating her, doesn't he? Remember when she was in the hospital and he was texting everybody, according to her. Well, anyway, that is what we saw. All of a sudden, she just went back. So there was even one report that said he was seen in Kansas. I don't know whether he went out there and snatched her back, or, put pressure on her, put it that way, and coerced her to come back. There was a lot of coercion. Yeah, and was he having an affair with Susie? I believe he was at that time. So why didn't he just let her go? Because he doesn't. Do you think he wants Susie really, or do you think she's just Mrs. Conveniently there? He allegedly defiled his own marriage with Mica, with Susie, to the point that her husband at the time, Chris Skinner, had to, according to uh, Allie's allegations, he confronted her, or confronted him, and 2 weeks later, where was he found? at the bottom of a pool. Uh, Mica confronted him and said she didn't want that woman, Susie, to come to the church after an alleged affair with her during her particular marriage, and then was kind enough to allow her to come back. And again, a dilemma. Her heart hurt when she saw Susie, who she probably considered a friend, and knowing what she did with her husband and the pastor, because Mica had the two for special in JP. So, yeah, right. I definitely enjoy Agatha May's works and encourage you all to watch that because she really does lay the dates, times, and situations down very well. Now, yeah, I'm just kind of going by what I'm remembering here. Anyways, what I was trying to get was anyway, how y'all doing today? Thank you for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe because I am definitely wanting to do great things here, and I appreciate y'all joining me. All right, so let's just go over some information here. Okay, now we know Mica met JP at the age of 14 and apparently was groomed throughout these years to think that JP was some kind of what I'm just going to call the Prophet King. Now, JP officiated the marriage of Mica to Jason at when she turned 18. Now, mind you, he was married with 5 kids. Uh, Mica began to officiate over some of the ministries, including design at the church, and also was a babysitter, where he says the two of them would babysit, but not always. Well, Allison then at that time was JP's wife and discovered them in a compromising position. They both divorced within a year, and both spouses left Solid Rock. JP continued in ministry with false claims of going to counseling and this type of thing that he never did follow through from what I see. Did y'all see if he ever followed through with any type of counseling? And here, even after Mica, he was supposed to step down and go to some counseling, but he has the ability because he owns a church to just say no. No, you don't need it. I don't need it. I'm right. I'm always right. I guess that's what you say. Is that what you say, JP? All right, so April 27th, 2024, 55-year-old Johnny Jacobs heard went fishing one day, heard a slight soft cry, followed by a loud bang or a soft bang, he said. Um, Found her belongings at the end of her path. Totally fishy story. We know that there's been several versions of the story. Um, Found her belongings at the ends of the path by the water, confiscated them, took them to a store where he bought a lighter, and home where he changed his vehicle. Came back, saw an unmarked car with the drone, gave that cop, said he recognized the drone as being LE, and apparently gave him the belongings where they were put out on the hood, including a cell phone, a small Bible. He called it a fanny pack. Credit cards, wallets, and of course the amazing $500 that showed up. Okay, so the whole story is full of holes. the whole story is what was left is basically a horrible investigation by Robeson County. I made a video on that, and the depth of corruption was never cleaned up, in my opinion, through tarnished badge or other operations. This is talk about generational curses. The depth of the corruption in Robeson County is very deep, from slave days on to the present day, I believe. And it's like we never understood, why did Mica even go there? Was it to see? There's was she lured there? Was there somebody else that we don't know about? Um, was she coerced to go there? Was somebody else in her car that got in at the 31 grocery? We don't know. We don't know. There's so many answers. I mean, there's so many questions and so few answers. And such a shoddy little investigation, and everything was put up in a nice little box. And it seems like LE, both in North Carolina and South Carolina, just just catered to JP, and he gets away with you know what and everything else. There's been multitudes of traffic violations. I'm just looking in today into that, where he allegedly, or he was convicted, so it's not alleged. He um, apparently, uh, at the age of 19, took his black truck, put black tape on the license, drove into a flood area, which is something I didn't realize. A 19-year-old woman was redirecting him, or told him to slow down or something like that. And he proceeded to hit her where she was carried over 100 feet on his hood, hit her again. Um, Several years later, he was basically absolved from this, because now he's a pastor and in good graces. You know, I never did understand that. Then we see different altercations through the protesters at the church, um, more speeding tickets and ANER and this and that. But it just seems like, you know, what is really going on? How deep are these connections, and what are these connections? There's certainly, in my opinion, free people connections, which are throughout the different LEs and you know other authorities, the Emmy, uh, the investigators, attorneys, high-ranking officials, government officials. The list goes on and on. One thing I know is these secret societies don't like dirt spread on their name. They try to come across very wholesome and upstanding, and that's just a cover for the diabolical work that and the contracts that they have with demons. These, to me, are ties that run deep, and I know they like to keep things clean. So somebody really messy like JP, in my opinion, is a threat to these other people who are allowing him to skate, and maybe they should really put the clamps on him if LE doesn't, in my opinion. Maybe I'm just dreaming. Yeah, keep peeling back the layers of the onion, like Ann said, and every layer gets more corrupt, and it truly, truly does. The deeper you go, the deeper it goes. you know, I just saw, what's his name? I want to call him CJ. Um, it was doing something. I didn't watch much of it, but and he took a drive. He does boots on the ground, so he took a drive out to um, basically that area, that particular area, and to old boy's church out there in Fairbluff, and yeah, and it's offering up other possibilities. You know what I'm saying? It's like other ideas. Something happened that day, and a lot of us aren't willing to take the narrative that we've been given about it. So coming up with just some other ideas. Thinking outside the box, because that's how things end up getting exposed. Because somebody hits on something, and maybe an Ellie or somebody who cares, who's in a position, might just actually see it, and it might be that missing puzzle piece that puts it all together. Has anybody heard if the alphabet agencies are still on this, or if anything new's been said at all? I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard nothing. What's taken so long if these things are true? Where are these people that are supposed to be speaking up against JP? Supposedly there's all these other witnesses and stuff. Has anybody heard any more cases coming against him? Are these people being paid off? Or is it really going to court? Are the clamps going to finally fall on this man who's done so much wrong, not just to Mica, but to the whole community, it would seem like? He doesn't seem like he's well liked, not by his neighbors and not by people in the community. So why was he so popular, do you think? Why do you think that he was popular as a preacher? Because they had a little money and put on a little shows and sang little rock songs with parodies of Christianity woven through the secular lyrics. Yeah, enough is enough of that. You know what I'm saying? It's one thing, okay, if some particular song, or if you're in a particular environment, maybe to draw like an outdoor festival or something like that, I can see doing that, okay, you know? But not week after week in church. Now you're just trying to show off or something. Yeah, I don't know. Something about that just rubs me the wrong way. I guess it's because that was something. Was it Manson? No. Yeah. Yeah. Charlie Manson. Oh, Charlie Manson. Yeah, he used to do that. He used to make little Christian parody songs of songs that were popular at that time to lure teenagers into his trap. The family. The us against them mentality. That's what we see in that particular church, don't we? The us against them. And it truly is. It truly is. When you see the protesters on the outside, and then the inside starting to leak out with amplified sermons of a man who's not even there to preach. What was that about? Anybody have any thoughts about that? Last Sunday, I think it was, they put an amplifier outside with JP's sermon, some sermon. What was that particular sermon even on? I can't listen to his squeaky voice myself. To me, yeah, it doesn't jive, and I wouldn't have been in that church long with somebody like that. Not even knowing the corruption that he perpetrated allegedly, but just the way he preaches is a turnoff to me. What did other people see in him? You know, I must have watched at least 12 of his sermons, and couldn't help but nitpick. I couldn't help but nitpick because it wasn't foundational. It was off the wall and full of ghastly stories sometimes. I saw one where he did a sermon on a wolf. It was so disgusting. I might just have to find it and post it because, I don't even want to say what he said. That's how gross it was. Just dramatic, full of terror and full of tears, of course. Yeah, he's one. He probably would have been a good actor, or maybe he is. Maybe that's what he really is, because he certainly is not a pastor. You can call yourself what you want, just like his dad calls himself a doctor. Yeah, same thing. You can call yourself whatever. I call myself Chevy Cool Lady. Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I don't really know. Hey man, I really, really appreciate you guys for joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. I love you. I love you so much. All right. I'm going to get back. I'm making a great video for you guys that's going to be full of wows. So I'll be releasing that today. Y'all have a very pleasant day. Be blessed in Jesus. Do good and let the joy just lead you. Let it lead you in all you do. He said in one interview that he always wanted to be a comedian. He's not a pastor, he's a performer. You, and he's not very funny though. That's the problem with that. He needs some new material. All right, now guys, appreciate ya. Y'all be blessed. Talk at you tomorrow. Bye.